You're looking at one of the most ingenious weapons ever designed. It weighs less than your phone, it's smaller than your thumb, and it was sewn directly into the clothing of British secret agents during World War II. This is the SOE Lapel Knife, and it was created to solve an impossible problem. How do you give a captured spy a fighting chance when they're stripped, searched, handcuffed, and sitting across from a Gestapo interrogator? Today, we're diving into the story of this remarkable piece of wartime engineering, a weapon so small it could hide in plain sight, designed by legendary combat experts, and intended for one final desperate act of defiance. But here's the thing. Despite all the training, all the psychological conditioning, and all the fearsome reputation, we don't actually know if it ever killed anyone. Let's find out why. To understand why this weapon exists, we need to understand the nightmare scenario facing British agents in occupied Europe. By 1941, the Special Operations Executive, Churchill's secret army tasked with sabotage and subversion behind enemy lines, had a problem. Their agents were brilliant at their jobs. They'd been equipped with suppressed well-rod pistols, plastic explosives, and all manner of gadgets that would make Q from James Bond jealous. But all of that gear became utterly useless the moment they were captured. And capture was a very real possibility. These weren't soldiers operating with military support. These were lone operatives, often working in civilian clothes, deep in Nazi-occupied territory. If the Gestapo or SD security forces got their hands on you, you were in serious trouble. The Germans weren't amateurs. They knew exactly what to look for. The moment you were arrested, you'd be thoroughly searched. Belts gone, shoes removed, hidden compartments in clothing, they'd find them. Poison capsules sewn into coat linings, discovered and confiscated. Within minutes of capture, an SOE agent would be stripped of everything that could be used as a weapon or means of escape. Then came the handcuffs, the interrogation room, and hours, sometimes days of questioning that could turn violent at any moment. The SOE realized they needed something radically different. Not another hidden gun or concealed blade in the traditional sense. They needed a weapon that could survive the most invasive search imaginable and still be accessible when the agent needed it most. They needed a weapon that was, for all practical purposes, invisible. Enter Station 12, a secretive research facility at Aston House where some of the war's most unconventional weapons were being developed. The men tasked with solving this problem were William Fairbairn and Arisaig Sykes, two legendary close-quarters combat instructors who'd spent decades in Shanghai municipal police dealing with some of the most dangerous criminals in the world. These guys literally wrote the book on knife fighting and silent killing. What they came up with was brilliant in its simplicity. The lapel knife measured less than 4 inches in total length. The blade itself was a simple double-edged spike, no fancy curves or serrations, just a sharp, sturdy point designed for one purpose: penetration. But here's where it gets interesting. There was no real handle. Instead, the knife had a flat metal tang roughly the width of your thumb. Some versions included a small lanyard loop to prevent the knife from being dropped during a struggle, but that was it. This wasn't designed for comfort or extended use. It was designed for a single desperate strike. The weight? Less than 40 grams. You could hold 3 of these in your hand and it would still be lighter than a modern smartphone. But the real genius wasn't the knife itself, it was the sheath. The sheath had perforated edges, like a series of small holes running along both sides. This allowed it to be sewn directly into the lining of a jacket lapel, coat collar, or even the seam of a trouser leg. It became part of the garment itself. Run your hands along the lapel and you'd feel nothing, just fabric and stitching. The knife disappeared into the clothing, completely undetectable to touch. Even if a German security officer was specifically looking for concealed weapons, they'd miss it. The SOE created several variants of this concept. The sleeve dagger was longer, designed to be worn along the forearm. The insole dagger was curved to fit inside the sole of a shoe, but the lapel knife remained the most popular because of its accessibility. Sewn into your jacket, it was always within reach, even with your hands cuffed in front of you.
Having the weapon was one thing. Knowing how to use it under the most extreme psychological pressure imaginable was another. SOE agents underwent brutal training at facilities like Arisaig in Scotland and Beaulieu in Hampshire. Part of that training focused specifically on what to do if captured and facing interrogation. The instructors taught a ruthlessly efficient anatomy lesson. They identified 3 primary targets: the carotid artery in the neck, the subclavian artery near the collarbone, and the femoral artery in the inner thigh. Strike any of these and you'd cause massive blood loss. But knowledge alone wasn't enough. The instructors understood that an agent sitting in a Gestapo interrogation room would be terrified. They needed psychological conditioning, something to give them the belief that even in their darkest moment they were still lethal. This is where the timetable of death came in. Instructors showed agents detailed charts claiming that a strike to the carotid artery would render an opponent unconscious in just 5 seconds, with death following in 12. These were presented as scientific facts drilled into agents' minds through repetition and practice. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Modern medical analysis suggests these timings were, to put it charitably, optimistic. A severed carotid would certainly be catastrophic, but unconsciousness in 5 seconds? That's faster than what most medical literature supports. So why teach it? Because the real purpose of the timetable of death wasn't medical accuracy, it was psychological warfare against fear itself. An agent sitting handcuffed in front of their interrogator needed to believe they still had power. They needed to believe that one quick strike could change everything. Whether or not it was literally true in 5 seconds didn't matter as much as the confidence it instilled. That belief could mean the difference between paralyzed despair and decisive action. So here's the question that haunts this weapon's history. Did it ever actually work? After extensive research through declassified SOE files, interrogation reports, and post-war memoirs, the answer is surprisingly elusive. There is no verified, documented account of an SOE agent successfully using a lapel knife to kill their interrogator. None. Now, that doesn't mean it never happened. Intelligence work is, by its nature, secretive. Many operations remain classified, and many agents never made it home to tell their stories. But the silence in the historical record is striking. We do have accounts of captured agents fighting back. One of the most dramatic is the case of Frank Pickersgill, a Canadian SOE agent captured in 1943. While being held at SD headquarters in Paris, Pickersgill managed to attack his guards during an interrogation. But he didn't use a concealed knife, he used a broken wine bottle. This raises an important question about the weapon's design. The lapel knife required incredibly specific conditions to be useful. You needed your hands to be free enough to reach your lapel, unsheathe the knife, and execute a precise strike, all while likely being watched and possibly restrained. In the chaos of a real interrogation, with multiple guards, physical exhaustion, and hands potentially cuffed behind your back, that window of opportunity might never open. And when it did, improvised weapons, a broken bottle, a chair, even bare hands might be more immediately accessible than reaching into your jacket lining. So, if we can't confirm it ever killed anyone, does that make the lapel knife a failure? Absolutely not. This weapon was never meant to be a primary tool of espionage. It wasn't designed to rack up a body count.
It was insurance, the kind you desperately hope you never have to cash in. Think about it from the perspective of an SOE agent being parachuted into occupied France. You're carrying fake identity papers, wireless equipment, and enough sabotage materials to get you executed 10 times over. You know that if you're captured, the odds of survival are slim. But tucked into your jacket lapel is one last option, one last chance. It might be a long shot, but it's better than no shot at all. That psychological safety net was invaluable. It meant agents could operate with the knowledge that they weren't completely helpless, even in the worst-case scenario. And in the world of clandestine operations, morale and psychological resilience can be just as important as weapons and training. The design was considered successful enough that the OSS, the predecessor to the CIA, adopted the lapel knife wholesale for their own agents. They recognized the value of giving their people that final failsafe. Today, original SOE lapel knives are exceptionally rare. Most examples in museums or private collections have questionable provenance because by design, these weapons were meant to be invisible and unmarked. The market is flooded with reproductions, and authenticating a knife that was deliberately made to be anonymous is nearly impossible. But the concept lives on. Modern intelligence services and special operations units still issue concealed last resort weapons. The specific designs have evolved, but the philosophy remains the same. Give your people every possible advantage, even when all seems lost. The SOE lapel knife represents something profound about human ingenuity in the face of impossible odds. It's a reminder that the engineers and instructors of World War II weren't just building weapons, they were building hope. Churchill famously ordered the SOE to set Europe ablaze, and while most people think of explosives and sabotage, sometimes that fire came in the form of a tiny blade sewn into a jacket, a silent promise to agents that they would never be truly defenseless. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the forgotten weapons and secret technologies of World War II. And remember, sometimes the most powerful weapons are the ones you hope you'll never have to use.